Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Welcome to Covenant Calendar on this Shabbat. Yahoo, it's Shabbat. Love it. Got a three-part study for you today. How come light comes first? Or maybe I should say it the other direction. How come darkness comes first in the tradition of man? We're going to be looking at Genesis 1, and I'm not going to even be able to fill in all the thoughts that I have as I go through this. I just somehow am not able to think that fast. So I hope that I'm able to reveal to you what I see. And I hope that you are able to see a lot more than what I reveal. I know there's some of you that will see an awful lot more than what I speak about these slides. So I welcome your comments after this, and I look forward to it. What does Yahuwah say? I am. Do you recognize that word? Or words, I should say. I am the eternal Elohim, the eternal Father. I am the Owr. What is Owr? Owr is pure light. There is no darkness and there is no koshek in it. When I say darkness, I'm referencing spiritual darkness. When I say koshek, I'm referencing physical darkness. When Yahusha, said, I am the light of the world, he is telling you he is the righteousness of this world. You look to the lower right-hand side, you'll see a pi sign. What is pi? It's man's designation that we understand eternity. It's an eternal number. It never stops. If you look up in the internet, you can see where it goes to hundreds and hundreds of thousands of decimal points, and it just doesn't stop. What is pi? If you look in the top right-hand corner of this slide, you'll see the covenant calendar insignia or symbol, if you will. What is it? It's the seasons. It is a 360-degree circle. And the only way that circle can be determined is by pi. 360 days of the year at creation, 360 degrees of the circle. It is the only possible way that pi or eternity can be found. It is Yahuwah's kingdom. This earth was placed into eternity. Eternity wasn't because of us. We are placed into eternity. And I hope you can understand what I'm saying here. If you have a lunar calendar, 354 days, you cannot have pi or eternity. If you have a 364-day calendar from the Dead Sea Scrolls, any of the affiliates, it does not expose pi. It does not expose eternity. It is also a contamination. It is a rogue entity that has no place on this earth. Never will. So what is so important about pi? The light came first. Covenant calendar is the entity, is Yahuwah's entity that reveals light came first. We went through Genesis 1, verse 1 last week, and we saw a very clear reason why light came first. Now, when you look up in your study sources, you will see, if you're not educated in study, and if you haven't learned why, you will see reasoning to declare that darkness came first. And that is the reason for this study. It's to show you how it is that we understand that light came first. So let's move forward. Better sheet. I want you to notice the Tav here. I want you to notice the arrow, right to left. Hebrew reads from right to left. The bait, the beginning letter, that designates that this is Yahuwah's kingdom. This is the inside of his kingdom, and it's sealed by a covenant of light. It's his sign, it's his seal, and it says mark. We're going to look at that. So when you see this word Bereshit written in English, many times you're going to see the T written in this direction, or this way, I guess. It can either symbolize Yahuwah or it can symbolize Satan. This is kind of like buying a house. Location, location, location. But here it's context, context, context. Who does this Tav, written in Hebrew, who does this represent? This is your decision. This is what you have to decide. Does this Tav right here, does it represent Satan? Or does it represent Yahusha, HaMashiach, the one who is going to redeem us at the end? This is what this three-part study is going to be about. In the beginning, we are going to be repairing a breach, and it's the Tav breach. This is a message from Yah's covenant calendar, and it's about Genesis 1, and the 1 to 5 is going to come later. Excuse me. For those that are unsure, I did notice a few new names here today. Welcome to Covenant Calendar. I hope you can stick with me. I'm going to read this slide so you understand how the terminology is. These studies try to refrain from using the word day that has been translated from the original Hebrew word yom. The word day loses a massive amount of definitive correctness in its ambiguous definitions. Day can indicate 12 or 24 hours, day or night, or both. It was just last week on a private Zoom that there was a person who was struggling with this word day and could not understand it because it's ambiguous. To understand scripture correctly, we need to be much more accurate. Reference is given to the word cycle in place of the word day. When quoting the scriptures or citing the Shabbat day, you will see it. Otherwise, cycle is the word of choice. The 24-hour cycle will be defined below to pinpoint the two seasons. Number 1, cycle. It references 24 hours containing the two seasons, one which is light, that's Owr, and one season that is of night, that is Leil. Season is the word etz. It is a 12-hour block of time, whether it is the light season or the night season. And a very important application example of season is found in Yirmiyahu, or Jeremiah 33, verses 20 to 25. And I highly suggest that you read those verses to find out the importance of the light season and the night season. There is a covenant for both. When were they covenanted? What is a covenant? Well, the light season was covenanted to have a certain specific application of timing. And the night season was also covenanted for a time frame. When are they? Do we confuse these covenants if we decide that the night comes first? Read Yirmiyahu 33, verse 20 to 25, and find out the seriousness of that confusion. Genesis 1:1. In the beginning, Yahuwah created the heaven and the earth. Question. Would not the very first in the scriptures be important? Or is it just an introduction? Yes, it should be very important, but how many people discount this verse as only a heading of introduction and not realizing the great impact within the Hebrew words that reveal the character of Mashiach? Reference back to that first slide. I am the light of the world. Genesis 1:1 is detailed in Creation's Curtain Call. If you haven't seen that, it's recorded for us to look at. It will be on our website. Please look at it. Sorry if I'm clearing my throat. I'm breathing very, very smoky air right now, so it's kind of got a bad throat. For this study, we understand that everything needed for the building and forming of this earth, up until cycle number 5, was fully created at the beginning of cycle number 1, instantly, upon the voice of Yahushua HaMashiach, that is, Elohim. The forming of the base elements proceeded in cycles 2, 3, and 4. Notice I have forming emphasized. There was no creating done on cycles 2, 3, and 4. It was a forming and a fashioning according to the Hebrew words and definitions. Then, upon cycle number 5, actual creation of living, breathing life commenced. That is where we see the word bara one more time. This is a basic, very brief introduction to the Aleph Tav. The Aleph Tav are the foundation of our faith. Aleph Tav. Yahusha is referenced as the Aleph Tav, the first and the last. These are the letters of the Hebrew Aleph Bet. Yahusha is the beginning and the finality of all authority. The first and the last, Yahushua HaMashiach. Please again, notice this red arrow, right to left. Hebrew is red from right to left. Here is your Aleph. It's at the very beginning. It's the first, the premier letter of the Hebrew Aleph Bet. Then we come to the Tav. It's the last, it's the final letter of the Hebrew Aleph Bet. The first and the last. All things were made by him, and without him was not anything made that was made. He is the final authority in all things, period. This study on the first cycle of creation, and the questions, it questions the word was. And that's found in Genesis 1:2, in many, many, many of your modern translations. The word was, is it correct? Genesis 1:2a in the KJV reads, and the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. Is that correct? Did Yahuwah create this earth without form and without void and in a contaminated darkness? Is that how he gave this earth to us to live in? Is that word was correct? So why the word why the word was? I hope by the end of this 3-part series, you're going to understand why I'm going here with this. Here we see interlinear scripture analyzer, Genesis 1:2, the word was. And I want to point out, you'll notice the arrow, it's pointing to the Tav. And look at this pronunciation here, or this transliteration, I should say. Teyata. This is from the interlinear scripture analyzer. And I want to tell you that you're going to see different spellings of this same word and different pronunciations of this same word because it's from different sources. These are the things you have to sort out. And the reason why I'd want to point this out is because most often people starting out, go to the Strongs because it's the easiest and it gets recommended the most to start out. Is it correct? Is it correct that Strong's removes this Tav? It will not show this Tav in Genesis 1:2. And I have spent 3 parts explaining why it is that this tav should remain in Genesis 1:2 in this word. So I ask you, prove all things according to what is written in Scripture. That's a command. That's what we need to do. Genesis 1 verses 2a, and the earth was. Here we see Hayah. It's H1961. You're going to see this number a lot. 1961. Hayah. Where did the tav go? How come there's no T here? Why? This is the question. How about from the scriptures, 2009? It's translated as came to be, a transitional state. This is not transitional. Was is a statement of being. It does not show a transitional period. Yet we come over here and we see came to be. And if we look up at the interlinear analyzer, we will see it has a tav. That's why I have this colored a different color so you can recognize the T. It symbolizes the tav. It's a transliteration. So how come it's the same word, H1961? You go over here, H1961. One is spelt Haya, and one is spelt, could it be Ayata? Well, you can look at this and you can say Hayata also. So because it's spelt different in English doesn't mean it's a different word. It's a different person giving their transliteration of the Hebrew letters. So I hope you understand this. When you see these different spellings, it's the same word, just a different view from a different person translating it. And I really, really hope that I can relay this to you. So again, the question is, how come in many of the study sources, there's no T here? And how come over here, there is a T for a tav? Is this more accurate or is this more accurate? If there's a tav missing from this word, can we start our days, our Shabbats in darkness? Yes? That's what I'm asking you. That's how serious this three-part study is going to dig. Different word spellings, same numbers, a little bit different with the Hebrew letters. Is this serious? I rate it with oxygen. What is the cause for these differences? Notice I've got the what crossed out because I want to bring your attention to a higher level. Who is the cause for these differences? Is there a who behind it? Is it a human? Or is it a higher level of being? Notice I've got it in black. Who is the cause for these differences? Should the Tav be in Genesis 1:2, H1961, or not? Notice the Tav here, Hayata, and notice over here, Iete. For Genesis 1:2a, which Hebrew word bears, and please notice this terminology, I am saying this purposely, which Hebrew word bears catastrophic consequences? Haya, or yata, or both? Little tiny details to some, but monumental to others. You're going to see various Hebrew font variants. In this study, you will only see Haya written in the flame font. This is what is referenced as the flame type of Hebrew letters. You will see Haya written here. No Tav, no T. In other places, you're going to see a different transliteration. You're going to see Hayata, and you'll see it written with the modern style Hebrew letters. This is the Tav in the modern style, transliterated as Hayata. and you'll see it in the flame style. Heyata, same letters as up here, just a different style. Then we'll come down to the paleo. Same letters, Heyata, spelled out the same way. And there's your tav. No, it's not a cross. This is a tav. It's a mark. It's like an X marks the spot when you go to vote. It's a signature. It's a sign. And I will be stressing this signature throughout a lot. Pronunciations. Well, we look at Strong's. Haya is what we see there. Interlinear scripture analyzer. Hayata. There. Same word, just different ways of pronouncing it, depending on how people understand it and want to transliterate. Then we come to the Bible Hub. They have Hayata also. Note, there's a tav here in the Bible Hub. Personally, I like that. I think it's great. But that is for you to decide. The two covenants. Again, here's your tav. I got this pronounced because I'm trying to show it. Jeremiah 33, verse 20. Thus saith Yahuwah, if you could break my covenant with the day and my covenant with the night, so that there be not day and night when? In their season. There's a specific season for the covenant of the day and a specific season for the covenant of the night. When were they covenanted? And when were they covenanted to? What leads out and what follows? This is important. Yahuwah has assigned a specific season, a Kodesh sequentially specific time frame for the operative covenants of the Owr Light season and the Leil night season. Can I say in big letters, sequence matters? It does. Yahuwah has an absolute sequential pattern for absolutely everything he does. If we confuse that sequential pattern, we will not be in his season. And to be in his season is ultra important. The covenant of the light season and the covenant of the night season. Will man attempt to change that which Yahuwah has assigned from the first cycle of creation? What about when we read in Daniel 7:25, where they're going to attempt to change times and laws? The words there, Adath and Zeman. Does the covenant of the night season and the covenant of the light season, does that qualify for changing if we decide that night comes first? Or is it correct? Does that qualify for understanding Daniel 7:25, attempt to change times and laws? Just something to think about. The covenant of the light season, I want you to look at the covenant calendar's insignia there. We have the light on top because we believe it came first and foremost. Yahusha said, I am the light of the world when he stood at the door of the Beit in Bereshit to create this earth. He is light. He gave this earth his signature, its sheet, its garment of righteousness. It's light encased creation right off the start. Yahusha seeded his righteousness, his light of righteousness, as a garment onto this earth. So you'll see we have the light portion of covenant calendar's insignia on the top. And we have the covenant of the night season down below. You will see the stars of the night season. When you look at either side, you will see the different colors. That's the twilight mixtures, the three different levels of the mixtures of twilight. So notice that the twilights are on either side, and you'll see there what appears as two different keys, one key off to the left, one key off to the right. Yes, they're an old design of key. I think they're pretty cool. But look at the center. Does the center kind of look like a crown? Could that key be a crown? Could it be the portal to Yahuwah's kingdom? The keys of the covenant of the light season and the covenant of the night season? Could that be the key as the portal to enter into his kingdom? This is the importance of what you're going to look at today and for the next three or the next two studies. What is up? Notice we had the light season up. What about what you see now? What is up is down. We have the night season on top. Is that first? Is that the attempt to change times and laws? The light season is at the bottom. Does it follow? Isaiah 50, verse 20. Woe to those who call evil good and good evil, who put darkness for light and light for darkness. The two covenants, the Tav, that's what we're talking about. Why Tav? It's a sign, it's a seal, a mark, and a signature. Whose signature is in Genesis 1:1? Whose signature is in Genesis 1, verse 2? That's the question of these studies. Covenant of the light and covenant of the night. Which came first? The Tav, being in one form a signature of the artist, is the heart of this study. It's the focal point. How many artists are recorded within the first two verses of Genesis 1? Did you ever ask yourself that? Was there two different artists? Was there one artist in Genesis 1:1 and a different artist in Genesis 1:2? How would you tell if somebody come and told you that there was two different characters in verses 1 and 2? How would you determine that? Could you? Has Yahuwah provided you with that information about the two different artists of Genesis 1:1 and Genesis 1:2? A Tav, it's connected to a person, or when it's connected to a person, it's a sign, a signature, and a seal of and through that character. Here we see the Tau or the Tav. It's a sign, a mark, and a covenant, a mark, and a sign of a lion. We know who that represents. Yahusha is the lion. It's a symbolic revelatory signature of him. That does not mean that the Tav always represents Yahusha. Just as easily, and we equally so, that Tav can resemble and show and be a signature of the destroyer, of Satan, the adversary. It is up to you to decide by context who that Tav represents. The Aleph Tav. When the Tav is directly connected to the Aleph Tav, that is Yahushua HaMashiach, see Genesis 1:1, where it reflects his character. We looked at that last week. The Aleph Tav, as seen here, is very appropriately placed over the cylindrical rings of life in a tree. I am the light of life, he says. Hebrew operates in a cylindrical, circular fashion. Everything starts at the point and returns back to the point that it left. The point of departure to the point of departure is what you see in Ecclesiastes 1:5. The lunar calendar does not function that way. It does not achieve coming back to the point of departure. The 364-day calendar of the Dead Sea Scrolls and its affiliates goes beyond that point of departure. It's another point of confusion introduced by another Tav, another character. It's another artist, and your duty is to find out who that artist is. The Aleph Tav it's the beginning and the end. As we saw last week, the ending was created at the exact same time as the beginning. It was a complete package on this earth. The Aleph Tav is the absolute authority over everything known to man, period. When a Tav is directly connected to a human, it reflects his character. Yahuwah installed a Tav, a mark, a recognition sign, and he sealed it to Cain to preserve his life while on this earth. Genesis 4, verse 15. And Yahuwah said to him, therefore, whosoever slayeth Cain, vengeance shall be taken on him sevenfold. And Yahuwah set a mark upon Cain, lest any finding him should kill him. Note that word here is ot. It has a tav in it, a sign, a seal, and a signature that was applied to Cain. I put this here so I can show you that that tav can reveal righteousness and it can reveal evil it's with the exact same letter, no difference. It's context. That's the important part. Consider Genesis 1, 1 to 2a, creation. Do we find a missing component, a missing tav anywhere? Was it just misplaced in that verse or in that word, hayata, in verse 2? Was it just misplaced? Did it accidentally get dropped? Or is there someone that would purposely dismiss it, purposely to deceive you and the masses? When the adversary said that he was going to control the Har Moedim, the mount of the feasts of Yahuwah, is it possible that he purposely removed that tav so that we would just easily think that darkness came first if we didn't do our study, if we weren't diligent? And what about the people that do not understand yet, and they come to people that are speaking that darkness come first? Is that exactly what the adversary is counting on? A deception. Who removed that tav and why? What does it do for you? Is H 1961, is it Hayata or is it Haya? Or is it both? Is it came to be or is it was? Or is it both? Could context be a factor to consider? When searching Genesis 1, verse 2 for the meaning of the word was, this is what is shown from the Blue Letter Bible. It uses Strong's information here and is is an identical Hebrew spelling to what is found in Gesenius' lexicon. Do you notice when you see here there's no tav? How come? When you look up this word in Genesis 1, 2, most specifically, when you're questioning this word was, why is there no T? Why is there no tav? Why is there no possible way of identifying who the author was and is today of verse 2? That one that assaulted creation with the evil contamination, that assaulted Yahuwah's Tav character of perfection in Genesis 1:1. Do you know that the adversary, Satan, is declared as having been built, created, as being perfect, exactly as the word tumim is, which declares perfection as the rock on Aharon's breastplate? That's how Satan was declared to be at the very beginning. He was perfect in all his ways. That has a tav. That tumim, perfection, has a tav. Now, how come here in verse 2 there's no tav? Would that be a way of camouflaging The evil Tav that assaulted perfect creation in verse 2 was. What is the original script spelling in this highly specific location? Genesis 1:2. The original preserved script wording is hayata. Notice the tav. Are we allowed to remove what we will from scripture? I don't think so. It's the same Strong's number designation, but with the tav. In the lexicon, here we have Strong's H1961. Haya. Same word, same place, and yet haya. Why then, in Genesis 1:2 specifically, has H1961 been altered to this? No tav. Please, if I'm stressing this, if I'm repeating it, if you're hearing this too many times, please understand I'm only expressing the importance of what you're going to see, of what you're going to understand. And it's going to take 3 presentations to bring this out fully. I'm just trying to introduce to you right now the importance of this situation. Is it possible that this particular spelling with a tav was preserved by Yahuwah to clearly instruct starting the Shabbat and the Moedim at dawn? Allow me to read this question one more time, because this is the question of these 3 studies you're going to see. Is it possible that this particular spelling with a tav was preserved by Yahuwah to clearly instruct starting the Shabbat and the Moedim at dawn? How so, you might ask? Let me tell you. It's going to take a while, but let's go. The opposing view, is it possible that this translation without a tav, as you can see here, there's no tav here, could this possibly indicate the start of every day, including Shabbat, at sunset, proceeding into darkness? I hope this raises your awareness of the issue at hand. Without a tav, could there be a spiritual seed application here? A spiritual seed. Does that mean spiritual? Does that mean we're pointing to Yahusha? Or could that spiritual seed be the seed that was on the waters of contamination in Genesis 1, verse 2? There's a difference. That tav is up for a choice. Whose is it? What tav, as in character signature, was it that imposed the choshek darkness signature in verse 2? When what reason would there be to hide or veil that tav seal? If that tav in verse 2 was removed, would that be removing the positive identification of the author of verse 2? What benefit would the adversary have that? If he was able to convince you that darkness started the days and darkness started the Day of Atonement so that you missed it, or day of Passover so that you missed it, or day of Passover so that you robbed Yahuwah of allegiance, of observance of the unleavened bread festival. If he was able to deceive you by removing a simple letter in verse 2, do you think he'd do that? He did say he was going to control the Moedim of Yahuwah. He said that in Isaiah. Do we accept that? Did that come much later? Or did he start on the first day of creation? Hayatah, H1961. Notice the Tav. Or is it Hayah? Notice the darkness that's there. Same number, same word, And yes, that word is used in that exact same spelling throughout scripture in different areas. And we are going to be bringing that to you because I want you to see that it is used viably so, very, very purposely used this way. And it's excellent. So why is it in verse 2? Well, maybe it is controversial. Maybe it's not. Maybe Tim is just dreaming this out. I hope you can have a look at this and decide for yourselves. Genesis 1:2 specific. Decide. What is it? Is it deception or is it not? Tav signs the spot. This is your paleo style of Tav. It's not a cross, as I mentioned before. It's a signature. And the main questions of this study, ultimately, who took the liberty to decide that Yahuwah's Tav is dispensable in this highly important spot? Was it Strong's? Was it Gesenius? Or any of the other lexicons or other study sources that agree with it, and just simply use it because that's what they've been given? Who took the authority to do this? Was it man or was it the adversary? Does it even matter? Is this a non-issue? Is this salvational? If you were to be removed from the feasts of Yahuwah, from the portals to his kingdom, does it matter? Character and signature. Your question. Could this missing Tav factor influence your decision of when to start your days, your Shabbat, and your Moedim? Or is this just something that you can pass off? Genesis 1:2, creation and a missing component. Was a signature purposely removed? As we progress through this study and focus on this question, what ultimate purpose would it serve to remove the Tav from Genesis 1:2, H 1961, Hayatah? In this study, you will see Satan written as such and the T referenced as a Tav. This is referencing the character signature trait and or seal, and by which the adversary can be positively identified. It is not declaring a Tav letter in spelling the name of the evil one, for that is but an all-encompassing Tet. You'll see it here in the pink. This is your Tet letter. But you will see me referencing Satan here with this style of T, because I want you to understand there is a Tav implication, a signature implication. So why is an artist's signature important? I took this from the internet, just I thought it was a worthwhile quote. Regardless of the medium, an artist's signature is a vital conclusion to their work. All artists should sign their compositions. So if you're an artist who doesn't consistently sign your pieces, now is the time to start. Interesting. A signature on a piece of art, first and foremost, is a signature marker identifying, I shouldn't have said signature, let's read it properly, is a marker identifying your work as your own. Signatures can even help paintings and drawings and other forms of fine art to increase in value over time. As an artist grows in popularity, their signature becomes more and more valuable. I underline this next bit because I really think it's important. Signatures also tie bodies of work together. Even disjointed, separate sets of work can have a sense of cohesion when one's consistent signature is used for them all. This is the importance of a signature. You think when Yahusha created this earth, do you think he put his signature on it? H 1961, Hayatah, an investigation. Why is this in black? Well, I think you know why it's in black. Starting on the next slide will be a four-slide encapsulated view of the extreme serious topic in focus. This study will then begin to examine the controversy in detail. It's a conundrum. The first few words of Genesis 1:2 are Haya, that's in the KJV, and the earth came to be, it's in the scriptures, Hayata. So the difference is the earth was, KJV, and the earth came to be. Was it created in darkness, or was there a transitionary period into darkness? In Genesis 1, verse 2, what is Yahuwah's original Hebrew word in this specific location for was or came to be? Hayata. We see that became in the interlinear scripture analyzer. This word is found in various Hebrew translations online, and also it is in the Stone Edition Tanakh, which I consider a very good edition, a good Hebrew edition of the Tanakh. Now, we need to verify the meaning given for this word. Let's dig into this word, hayata, with the tav dropped. Is H1961 a verb exposing a transformation? Or is it a summary statement, a description of a past condition? Here is from the Etymological Dictionary of the Hebrew Language by Ernest Klein. Hayata, notice he has the vav. It's a derivative of haya, is what he records. I want you to notice these definitions. I have some of these highlighted in green. Happen, become, came into being, became, it came to pass, and happened. I want you to note the ones that are not highlighted. So it has the other definitions: to exist, was, existed, he remained. So it's a choice. What is the context? We have to pay attention to context. Looking at a Hebrew and English lexicon by John Parkhurst. This is from 1762. It does not use the Masoretic vowel points. And I hope you understand why I express that, because there has not been an infused change into the words by the Masoretic vowel points. That's why I highly value this lexicon. Here he has the same word, H1961, denoting the state of condition of being. And he also has or it can be exist and to be. Moving forward, how about Brown Driver Briggs? It lists several other definitions for the word was. I want to ask you before we go through here, only the verb definitions are highlighted in green. Please remember that. Only the verb definitions are highlighted in green. So let's go through it. To be, become, became, come to pass, exist, happen, fall out, to happen, fall out, occur, take place. And you can keep going through here and read these. A lot of them are close to the same: to arise, to appear, to become. Is there any here that are not verbs? Is there any here that relate a noun, a solid position, a state of existence? Interesting, they're all verbs. They relate a transformation period. Is it possible at Genesis 1:2 there was a transformation, a state of well-being, as in perfection, to a state of choshek, contaminated darkness? Just a question. Do you see a summary statement here? Or do you see a transformation? A conclusive statement or a transitional verb? Which is it? A lexicon here by W.H. Barker. It's from 1776. He has this under Niehi, and this is cognate with the same family of words, and he has Hayata or Hayata, sorry, Hayata listed here. And he says it's in the same family of words. Become, be done, accomplished. Notice these are verbs. They are structured so you understand there is a transitional state. It's not a, a stagnant, if you will, uh, state of being. There is a transformation period in this same word. Next, I want you to note the two very popular sources and their transliteration. Here we see the Hebrew and English lexicon of the Old Testament. And this is based on the lexicon of William Gesenius, and it's translated by Edward Robinson in 1906. The word is H1960, Haya. Notice, even here, there is no tav. But look, destruction, ruin, and disaster. Very, very interesting that they have these. Might this describe the Hoshep enveloping the creation with tohu and bohu, chaos and void, from Gesenius? Yet there's no tav. Just another interesting thing to observe. Let's come down to Strong's. Here's the popular Strong's exhaustive concordance. Haya, no tav here either. To exist, be or become, come to pass, and accomplished. So it's up to you to decide context. Looking again at the Hebrew and English lexicon of the Old Testament from Gesenius, destruction, ruin, and disaster. In Genesis 1:2, is it was or is it come to be? And the question you need to answer for yourself, did Yahuwah create our intended habitation in destruction, ruin, and disaster, contamination, that which cannot support life? Is that his sign, seal, signature, and mark and covenant? That's the question you need to ask. Most specific questions. When the tav is deleted from the word ayata in Genesis 1:2, and it states that the earth was in chaos and vacancy, vacancy, does this attribute a complete failure on the part of Yahuwah to create in a perfect state? A failure to produce life from Yahuwah? Is your creator who gave the rock to the breastplate of Aharon that denotes perfection, is he a failure? Context. Genesis 1:2. What tav is in Ayatah? Remember, the tumim on Aharon's breastplate, it denotes perfection. And I should have had this T here to denote tav, but let's speak it out. The tav is the first letter of tumim. It denotes perfection. When he put this rock on Aharon's breastplate, the indication was, this is how you will know me. The other rock was the Urim, light. Perfection in light at the very first of creation. So what happened? What paintbrush designated for an author, what paintbrush painted this earth in verse 2 with darkness and choshek, contamination? Yahuwah here, he openly declared his state of being, perfection, and nothing short of it. Genesis 1:1, Bereshit. There is his tav right there, perfection, right there at the very beginning. Is there a reason for this tav signature? Is Yahuwah indicating what came first, light or darkness? That's just on one very small level of understanding. There's massive other ways of different avenues of understanding that can lead out. but we're looking at calendar right now. So for this time right now, what about light? Was it first or was it last? Who proposes to confuse it? Luke 10, verse 18 is a good verse to look at. Well, Rashit, that's in the word Barashit, the definitions. The word Rashit is first and foremost and chief, primary and premier. Genesis 1:1, Barashit. Will the removal of a tav in Genesis 1:2, will it negate this tav? Which identity wants this tav annihilated? Luke 10, verse 18. Bereshit, the connection. More on this tav. If you look here, there's a tav that represents Yahusha HaMashiach, the end and the beginning and the end. There's a tav, a covenant, a sign, a seal, and a signature. Here over on the next second word over, it's given to us and in English, but it also has an aleph tav, or prefixed by a vav. Again, the aleph tav. End and the beginning that specifically designates Yahusha HaMashiach. This H53 word is translated to us as and. The vav is a nail upon which a connection can grasp. Can it then be understood that the aleph tav, being Yahusha HaMashiach, is also directly connected, as in covenanted, hope you see the tav there, as covenanted by a signature to this earth? In the beginning, did he put his signature onto this earth? A signature, a covenant, a mark, a sign, and a seal. Should we consider the possibility of an insidious deception existing at the beginning of our English scripture editions? Or shall we simply declare that the Hebrew aspect has no value to us and continue on in our blindness? Blindness? Yes, a veil of imposed evil. Shall we go with the translated was editions and accept that Yahuwah blasphemed his own character, breaking his own command not to take his character in vain? Blasphemed? Yes, if Yahuwah were to create anything less than perfect, and especially this earth, which he declared it was created to sustain life, and if Yahuwah created this earth in chaos, in void and darkness, then Yahuwah would have blasphemed his own name. Read, character. Is that who he is? Stay tuned. Many explanations are coming down the chute, if you will. We know for absolute certain that Yahuwah did not blaspheme his name and his own character. So then, exactly of what state was this earth created in? And just as important, how did this earth become enveloped in the Choshek, the evil contaminated darkness? How did that happen? Can we, for a short time, adjust our murky mindset, which has been shrouded by tradition? Can we diligently set it aside, even if only temporarily? And can we consider a missing Hebrew component, a tav that has been purposely removed so that we did not understand how to identify the two authors of Genesis 1, verses 1 and 2? Was that done on purpose? Tav. In case you didn't realize it, we're focusing on Tav. Tav, the primary focus today. Genesis 1:2. As for the earth, it came to be chaos and vacant, and darkness was over the surface of the abyss, and the spirit of Elohim was vibrating over the surface of the waters. Notice here, there's that Tav. This is what we're talking about. You'll find this in the Interlinear Scripture Analyzer. You want to get very accurate. It has it listed here. She became a transitionary period. Look, it's listed here. Came to be. I want you to see this. Upon reading Genesis 1:2, we see a tav within the H1961 word. Referencing this very verse from another source, the Strong's concept then surfaces, and the representation from this word does not have a tav. If you get the idea that we're exposing different study sources that are less than acceptable, you've got a light going on. You've clicked on it. We're trying to expose this, that you need to be careful on your study sources. Just because you have a study source that other people have recommended doesn't mean it's correct. It is important for you to get multiple study sources, compare them together, and get the context from Scripture. If your study sources, if they uphold the context of Scripture, then go with it. If they do not, then you need to go back to Scripture. Is this a problem when you see the tav is removed? Is it a problem for your idea of what came first, light or darkness? What is the importance of a tav in this most specific location? Came to be. This is the question. Came to be, is it correct? Or will the character of Yahuwah will reveal was, is the proper translation. Very, very serious implications rest upon your final selection. An interesting point here. When you look at this H1961 in the Blue Letter Bible Resource, which uses Strong's, it brings up the Strong's definitions. Please note the absence of the letter Tav. What is most peculiar about this? Let's read a very pertinent verse. Here you will see Yod He Vav He, and it is this verse of Exodus 3, verse 14. Notice here, some exposure coming up. And Yahuwah said unto Moshe, I am that I am. And he said, Thus shalt thou say unto the children of Israel, I am hath sent me unto you. Please come over here and see the definitions down here. Note this definition, exist. This is a correct application here of this definition. I am, Yahuwah exists. It's simple. It's not a problem. It does not need the tav for a identification of a different character. So in this application, not having the tav is just fine. What I'm trying to express to you is there's a difference, and we need to recognize the contextual difference. How about if we come over here and we saw this and we use this definition here, come to pass. And Yahuwah said to Moshe, I come to pass, that I come to pass. No, it's wrong. It doesn't fit. We have to find the correct application, the correct definition. Yahuwah exists. He is the omnipotent one. He just is. It's that simple. We know Yahuwah did not come to be. Yahuwah simply existed within perfection because of who he is. Back to the Tav in question. Whose Tav, found in verse 2, was challenging the eternal existence of perfection. Which Tav wanted to annihilate, eliminate, or at least camouflage the Tav of perfection on the first day of creation? The translators From the Masoretic text, notice it's bolded. The translators from the Masoretic text are counting on you to turn a blind eye to the meaning of the Hebrew letter. Oh, I don't need to study that. Somebody has told me it's this way, and I'll just go with it. They're counting on you to do things in a subtle way. But we are told from Scripture to prove all things. Are we going to stop short? Or are we going to prove about the Tav found in Genesis 1 2? Are we just going to accept it and go happily on our way where we see exist with no Tav is? It's your choice. Not only here have they ignored the deeper meaning of Yahuwah's character context in perfection, but they have proceeded to blaspheme his character. How? By implying that Yahuwah, the perfect one, created a Hoshek contaminated earth for his children to inhabit. Ye are children of the light, and I give you darkness. Is that right? Or is that revealing a blaspheming that has been taught to us? Why were one of these direct definitions not chosen for Genesis 1 2? Become and come to pass. How come many scriptures have, and the earth was? Who's behind that? In reality, who was directing the choosing? The choosing. Do you note I have this in a black indication, a black sign, I guess, if you will? Who was choosing this? What context has been overlooked? Yet, even in the verse where Yahuwah claims who he is, his actual being of existence, the Hebrew letter Tav, his signature of everlasting, is not present in the Hebrew word H1961 in this specific location. And the questions are, why is this even coming to the table for discussion? Is it even worth discussing? Or is it a non-issue? The real question now becomes, what is the significance, the Hebrew definition and meaning of the Tav as seen in Genesis 1 2? Hang on, we're going to look more at it. Yahusha, the artist and author of creation. Here's a point to ponder. Did Vincent van Gogh and Leonardo da Vinci, did they have the same style of printing? Painting. Is it even possible to distinguish between them who created the paintings? And I hope when I make these reading mistakes that you can help me out and understand what is printed. And when I make the mistake, just go with it, please. Is it safe to declare that each one had their very own unique and very distinguished style? Shall we consider this? Is it safe to assume that Yahusha, Elohim, also had his own very distinguishable flavor to imprint on his creation? If so, what might that signature appear as? This is a pure calendar question. What is his signature? Is it spiritual only? Is it physical only? Or is it both? Yahusha is the author, the artist and the author of creation. He is the author and the perfecter, if you read Hebrews 12, verse 2. Pure calendar questions. What came first? Was it the covenant of the light season or the covenant of the night season? Was it light or was it darkness? Reference to you, Jeremiah 33, verse 21. John 8, verse 12. Therefore, Yahusha spoke to them again, saying, I am the darkness of the world. No, that's not what he said. He said, I am the light. Is that just physical? Or is that just spiritual? Or is that physical also? I am the light of the world. What about when Moshe saw Elohim between the split of the rock, and he came out, and his face shone so brightly that his fellow people around him could not look at his face. He had to cover it. Yahusha said, I am the light of the world. Would he not take his paintbrush and paint this world with that light? This is who I am. I am the light of the world. Ye are children of the light. I will give you a creation in which you can habit in light which supports life. Continuing this verse, he who follows me shall by no means walk in darkness, but shall possess the light of life. Do you possess light? Or do you possess the Shabbat that starts in darkness, that is the mark? Remember, the Shabbat is the mark of Yahuwah. Does the Shabbat that you observe start in darkness? Yahusha says, I am the light of life. Is it even remotely possible that this statement provides a clue to Yahusha's character, the covenant signature of the artist found embedded in that Tav, the Tav, found in Genesis 1-2? And there's several of them there. And what about the Tav that has been purposely set aside and hidden from unsuspecting eyes? Yes, I can understand if if you haven't looked at this before, if you haven't been given a little bit of instruction about Yahusha being the light that come first, I can understand this mistake being. But now it's time to open up our eyes and understand. It's time to recognize the words that have been written for us. Yahusha has proclaimed he is the light of life. Then along comes Isaiah 45:18, where Yahusha declares he created this earth to be inhabited, supporting life. When man declares earth was created in darkness, chaos, and void, are we able to realize the disconnect here? Do I even need to go any farther than this verse? This earth was created to support life. Are we okay with darkness, chaos, and void supporting life from a perfect creator who is light? Could this actually be his Tav, his signature from creation, the light of life? Here's another one, another chance to look at Exodus 3, verse 14. And Elohim said to Moshe, I am that which I am. And he said, thus you shall say to the children of Israel, I am has sent me to you. The footnote here is the Hebrew text reads, Eyeh asher eyeh. The word eyeh being derived from hayah, which means to be, to exist. But the Aramaic text here in verse 14 reads, Ayah, Ashar, Ayah. This is not his name, but it is an explanation that leads up to the revelation of his name in verse 15, namely Yahuwah, the one in perfection, light. For comparison, this is Exodus 3:4 here, and the Stone Edition Tanakh and the interlinear scripture analyzer do not show a Tav in this verse either. Yet, it is still deemed as H1961, and it's perfectly acceptable. Why? Because there's no need to identify a different Tav signature. Here comes that focus again. And it came to be chaos and vacant, and darkness was over the face of the abyss. What is the importance of a Tav in this most specific location, whose signature supports darkness, chaos, and vacancy? We have briefly looked at the points where the Tav is found in one profound verse and is not realized in another very profound verse, but is deemed the same word, H1961. Think on that for a bit. For the next few verses, we'll be looking at the type of creation established at the very beginning by Yahuwah. We will be returning back to the point of importance of the rejected Hebrew letter. So we're going to be going through some various verses here, different usages. I hope you can stick with me on this. In what state was the earth originally established? Isaiah 45:18. We've looked at this, read it a couple times, but let's look at it a little bit closer. For thus saith Yahuwah, creator of the heavens. He is Elohim, former of the earth, and its maker. He established it. Established, that's an interesting word. Did he establish it in Owr Light or in darkness? Note the terminology. Earth was established. Established shows a life-supporting, completed action. It is not insufficient or deficient. It is a completed unit. If the Hebrew word showed an incomplete format, that would expose an unprepared, faulty character trait. That would be nothing short of blasphemy by Yahuwah to his own name. He has declared that he is perfect. How do we know that Or was already established before the first Erev, or before the first evening mixture? The first Hebrew word of Genesis 1:1 tells us that light was established before darkness. How? Well, keep tuned. Are you ready for the journey? There's a song. Yes, yeah, I'm ready and I'm waiting to go. I'm not musical, so I hope you can fill in the musical notes. Are you ready? Continue more. Rebellion is as witchcraft. Did Satan rebel on the first cycle of creation? Have you considered the second verse in your scripture edition? What if the removal of this Tav is rebellion? To get you to understand that, or I should say, to get you to deceive you to understand that darkness came first. Would that be rebellion? And would that be form of witchcraft? So the missing component, what is it? It's a signature. What happens when the Tav is dropped? Exactly what was actually established as a signature in the first moments of creation? Whose signature was it? Was light established first? What occurred when the Tav was dropped? Exactly what trait was established? Could it be darkness as a suggestion to you? Oh, you can't identify Yahuwah by a Tav, and so we'll just give you the suggestion that darkness came first. Do you accept that? I hope not. I hope this Hebrew understanding helps you understand who it was that brought the darkness suggestion first, the rebellion. In strict accordance with Genesis 1:2, is H1961, is it Hayatah or is it Hayah? Is it okay to delete this Tav? And who decided that Tav would be there? Who dictated to Moshe the Torah, and specifically covenanted Torah? Who dictated that? If we remove this identification letter, are we causing rebellion? If we accept it, the removal, are we accepting rebellion? It is character identification. Yahuwah has promised he will give us what we need for understanding. This Tav, let me suggest to you, this Tav is part of it. Rebellion hidden in our scriptures. Here's the interlinear scripture analyzer. So we have a clarity. Right here is the Tav. You see it right here? And the Tav right here, this word, H1961. I've blown it up on the side here, enlarged it so you can see it explicitly for clarity purposes here, so that you can know that I'm not leading you astray. At least not intentionally, anyhow. And yes, I am a man. I have capability of making mistakes. So please prove all things. Don't just accept what I say. Take it and prove it. And if you can prove it wrong, let me know, please, because I want to know, and I'll be the first to change it. That being said, in Genesis 1:2, have you noticed the Tav as the third letter, the third Hebrew letter in this word? Let's look at another witness. Here's a picture out of the Stone Edition Tanakh. It's a witness also. Is there a Tav here? Notice I have it underlined right here. Hayata, right there. Stone Edition Tanakh. Yes, it's another witness. Here's number 3, Westminster Leningrad Codex. Does the Tav exist? Genesis 1:2? Yes. The Tav is right there, underlined in blue. Another witness. H1961, same word. How about the Hebrew Old Testament, the HOT? Yes, here we see H1961. The Tav is here also, Genesis 1:2. Another witness. Do we have more? Here's the complete Jewish Bible. Would they remove the Tav? Absolutely not. They would not remove the Tav, not at all. Yes, it's recorded here, and I enlarged it here, down here, so you could see it. It must be understood for clarity. Yes, the Tav is the third Hebrew letter in this H1961. Do we have another witness? The contemporary Torah, JPS? Yes, the Tav is recorded here too. Underlined, there's your Tav. In total, we have seen 6 witnesses to the Tav being within the H1961 Hebrew word of the second verse. Let's read it a bit. When God, and I shouldn't say that, let me please just remove that. When Yahuwah, that's much better. When Yahuwah began to create the heaven and the earth, being unformed and void with darkness over the surface of the deep, and a wind from Yahuwah sweeping over the water. Hold it, hang on, the earth being unformed and void. What about this Tav here? Shouldn't we look at this Tav? How come they have the earth being unformed? Why doesn't it read here, the earth came to be void and darkness? Careful, we must question what we read. We can't simply accept it because it has the word Bible in front of it that it's correct. There is contamination, and that is the reason why we go back to these Hebrew letters. We need to go back to the Hebrew. Shouldn't we be questioning this with every sinew in our body? Yes, absolutely. Beyond shadow of a doubt, we need to question this. Hayah, word was. Why then are we given this to simply accept without question? Where's the Tav? What difference does it make, if any? Genesis 3:1. Here's another application of H1961 without a Tav. Now the serpent, it became more crafty than any other animal of the field that Yahuwah Elohim had made. The serpent said to the woman, indeed, Elohim say, you shall not eat from every tree of the garden. I want you to look at this word very carefully. There's no Tav here, yet they have translated he became. This is a transitional point, a transitional state of being, yet there's no Tav. Speaking into this state of the serpent, H1961 does not have a Tav in this word, yet it is translated as covering a transitional point of time. How come? Why? This is fully acceptable. This is not a problem. How come in Genesis 1:2, when it even has the Tav, that it wasn't given the same transitional state of being definition. Who is in charge of that? Why not a period of transformation in Genesis 1:2? And I know you guys are going to get sick of hearing that, but it needs to be asked. Why not a period of transformation in Genesis 1:2? Who, note, it's bolded, who would be delighted for us to believe that Yahusha created a locale for his children to be inhabited in absolute chaos, vacancy, darkness, and evil contamination, and utter creative disaster and failure. Now the word who comes to mind a little bit stronger. Who would cause you doubt? No, sorry. Who would cause you to doubt your creator? If this contemptible identity could not permanently destroy creation on the first cycle, what is to keep him from destroying our belief in Yahusha and his creative capability later in Genesis 1, verses 1 to 2? Selah. Or think on that. Take a deep breath and think. Genesis 9, verse 26, same letters or same number, H1961. And he added, Blessed be Yahuwah, the Elohim of Shem, and let Canaan become a slave for him. Here we have the transitional period of become, the verb type state, a transitional period. It does not have a tav. It is once again translated as covering a transitional time span. It's acceptable here. Context, everyone. Context. We have viewed H1961 in text without the tav, and specifically Genesis 1, verse 2, with the tav. We understand the tav has a very specific meaning. What benefit will the tav meaning possibly supply to Genesis 1:2? And even much more important, what identity challenge of extreme importance would be lost in Genesis 1, verse 2, when the tav of H1961 is deleted, removed from your understanding? Who takes away from Scripture? So this slide is really busy. Don't try to read it. Don't just look at it. We're going to be breaking this down in the next slide coming up. This is what it looks like. But let's break it down in the next slide. We're going to be looking at each one of these individually. This is from J. Parkhurst, a Hebrew lexicon, Genesis 1:2. And we're going to be noting the purpose of a vav as a prefix here. You'll see, I'll get my cursor going here. Here's the vav under the green arrow. J. Parkhurst has this translated as and. This is and just explained here. And eretz. That's the word for earth. Continuing on with our breakdown of this, Genesis 1:2, a tav. Yahuwah preserved this tav within the verb for a purpose. Yet here, we don't have a tav. That's kind of interesting. And the word is was. And the earth was unformed and hollow. This is not what we see in Scripture, not in the context. H1961, this should be hayata. There should be an identifying tav here, but there's not. I think this is the only problem that I have ever found with J. Parkhurst. Well, no, it's the second one, J. Parkhurst's lexicon. And I will tell you that this is the best lexicon that I know of, that I understand. And I want to also say that Pastor David from Manna from Heaven, when he looked at this lexicon, he absolutely endorses it fully. But the reason I'm pointing this out, even though I I hold this lexicon in very high esteem. I do not trust it implicitly. It has a mistake, and we need to be able to identify these mistakes. Just because it's written in a lexicon, even a very, very, very good one, if it does not hold up to scripture, context in scripture, then we must go back to scripture. Scripture holds our truth in everything. But let's continue here. Yeah, there I have it questioned. I should have brought that up earlier. Why was? There's the words for tohu and bohu right here. Now for J. Parkhurst's lexicon explanation coming up. Here we have hayata. It's the third person feminine singular preter of the verb haya. He's explaining it now. It's hayata with the tav is preter of the verb haya. We'll see the verb over here. What does he say about, or no, what does the word preter mean? I had to look this up just to be sure. So here it is, preter, to lend, to give, to help, to help. Help us in understanding. Look more in the dictionary.com. It's a prefix meaning beyond, more than, by, past, occurring originally in, note this, loan words from Latin. Preterite. I don't know if I said that correctly or not. Hopefully I didn't slaughter it. And used in the formation of compound words. I'll say that again. It's used in the formation of compound words. So we're looking at compound word here. Merriam-Webster, preter, two of two, combining form variants, or less commonly, preter. Beyond the range of, surpassing, preter normal. So someone decided, and I think we know who that someone is. Someone decided that the tav was not helpful. Notice helpful over here. They decided that the tav was not helpful, and that identity decided to have the tav removed because they did not want the identifying character of verse number 2 to be known. Who was that? Restoration of creation's cycle number 1. That's the importance of this study. It's a restoration so that we can understand the remainder of Scripture. So that we can understand when Yahushua was found 3 days late in the tabernacle and his parents asked him, "What are you doing?" He says, "Don't you know? Don't you understand? I must be about that of my Father." And what is that of his Father? It's to be in the tabernacle, observing the first day of unleavened bread after the Jewish feast had passed. How does this come to be? It's the restoration of creation cycle number 1, understanding that light came first. Let's continue on with this slide. I just a little bit of a path there, a bunny trail. So who attempts to remove the tav? The answer is easy once we understand the implications. The important question is, why was it removed? And what damage can it cause when disregarded? Let me jump to John 7. When Yahushua he didn't attend, or I shouldn't say, he didn't observe the lunar-based feast of the Yahudim in John 7, the lunar Sukkot. But he went up to it for the seventh day Sabbath, and at the feast he told them, he talking to the scribes and Pharisees, he said, "Not one of you is doing the Torah." Not one of you is doing the Torah. And yet we're told that he observes the lunar feast where they have the sunset starting the day. What is it? This is a restoration of cycle number one, where light came first. Yahusha said, I witness against it that its works are wicked. So let's work with the words of Yahuwah. Let's recognize his sandals and let's restore. Light came first. Where do we begin? Creation cycle number one, the very first place where it was confused by the removal of the Tav, the inability to identify the adversary that destroyed creation on the first cycle. So the general summary of the last 5 slides, let's look here. The Tav was inserted into 1961, forming Hayatah by Yahuwah's inspiration, the Ruach. And it's for assistance to improve clarification by determining a specific atmospheric aura transition. Let me say that again. This Tav helps us determine and clarify the specific atmospheric aura transition that happened in Genesis 1, verse 2. It went from a perfect creation, perfect in every way, to an aura of evil contamination seen in the Haushek darkness. My purpose for this series of studies is to restore the understanding of creation cycle number one so that we can understand and determine exactly why Yahusha said, I witness against it that its works are wicked, referencing the lunar-based calendar with the sunset start of the day. Light came first. We are restoring that. Note the specific terminology. There was an atmospheric aura transition, spiritual light to a contaminated darkness, physical light to a physical darkness, with a different seed on the waters. What seed was on the waters? That seed is identified by the Tav. The characteristics, the signature of evil was on the waters. If you will note, the waters is a pleasant euphemism for the male seed. That evil male seed that was on the waters was none other than the adversary himself. This is the importance of that Tav. Coming back to this atmospheric aura transition, this catastrophe followed the initial event of Yahuwah speaking this earth into a perfect locale, a lighted habitation for his children of the light. Tav tampering. Who did it? And why? Do we accept it? Or is it the little grain of sand that we need to get out of our mouth, that one that is causing problem? Question for you. Why does it seem that the Tav has been dropped? Is there something to be gained by removing a simple Tav? Coming up to the end. A few more slides left. Bear with me, please. Oh, here it says the end. I thought there was more. This is the end for today. Part 2 will be restoring Yahuwah's character. We're going to be digging into this a fair bit deeper, into the Tav. If you need assistance with this study, please send your questions to me, Timothy Asselford, at questions@studythecalendar.com. I thank you for your time, and I really hope that you've been able to stick with me and understand what I'm trying to present to you. And I just wish you the best shalom on your Shabbat.